What happened during the 11 minutes that Mirabel was left alone with her mom? Grandma Chua is staring at this really bizarre, odd sight. In the open doorway, Ka Yang, Chua's daughter, is holding the little 2-month-old baby in her arms. Ka's pants, they're wet. Then Grandma Chua's eyes go to baby Mirabel. She's not moving. Her face is red and her body seems unusually stiff. And her daughter is telling her, Mom, we gotta go to the hospital. She's sick. She's sick. Hurry. Grandma Chua goes straight into grandma mode. She runs into the house. She takes her granddaughter Mirabel, places her down, unzips her PJs, and her skin. The skin on this little baby's chest is bright red. And within minutes, 911 is called. And within minutes of that, first responders are arriving at the scene. The consensus in the house seemed to be that the baby was accidentally dropped onto the space heater. There was nothing the first responders could do. Within 9 minutes, baby Mirabel would be pronounced dead at the scene of the crime. And there would just be so many questions that the authorities have now. Like, why is Mirabel's body covered in burns, but her hair and her clothes aren't nearly as burnt? And does it have anything to do with the little purple pacifier that they find inside the microwave? Everything about that day was beyond normal, or at least it's supposed to be normal before Mirabel died. So Ka Yang's husband is this truck driver and he's gone for the whole day. He's not coming back for probably a few more days. Ka Yang's brother-in-law was at the house. He was living at the house when this happened. He's just helping her take care of the kids. Even Ka Yang's mom slept over the night before. So she's got a lot of support. So she can just focus on doing her work. She works from home and applying for benefits and taking care of the kids. They have 4 kids, 3 boys under 7 and now 2-month-old Mirabel. Va, the brother-in-law, had just left the house to go pick the boys up from school. And when he walked out of the house, he remembers seeing Ka holding Mirabel and working on her computer. Ka's mom is out on the yard doing some yard work. And for the next 11 minutes, Ka and Mirabel are alone. And Ka said, I don't know what happened. I felt this weird pounding in my head. I saw this bright flash of white light. And that's all I remember. The next thing she knows, she's waking up on the floor. She's laying on something wet. Her pants are drenched. And she's like, that's my urine. She had wet herself. And she had bit her tongue. Her tongue is raw, like she bit off a chunk of it. So in this confused, head-pounding state, she gets up and she sees 2-month-old Mirabel on the ground, laying next to her. And her face, Mirabel's eyes aren't open, but her whole face is bright red. She reaches over and Mirabel is stiff. Ba walks in through that door at the exact moment, and he would be the one to call 911. Ka and her family agree. I mean, in this state, she must have fell on top of the baby on the space heater. But it doesn't make sense. Not even a little bit. Because how is Mirabel burned head to toe, but her hair and pajamas are not that burned? It would take the investigators 3 months to figure out exactly what happened to Mirabel. One of the officers in the investigation team states, the child sustained unusual and rare thermal burns, and that was determined that those injuries occurred as a result of being burned in a microwave. They had a suspicion, but it wasn't enough to arrest Ka Yang, because she does have diagnosed epilepsy. So it's not like her story doesn't check out completely. So within 3 months, they gather enough evidence to come in and arrest Ka. They were able to gather that Mirabel was likely placed into a microwave on her back based on the burns. Additionally, they estimated that Mirabel was placed into the microwave at least 2 to 3 minutes at minimum. The investigators, they sit Ka Yang and her mother down for an interview, and they want to know what happened when you were alone with that baby, because you did not fall on a space heater. Ka Yang explains it was just a normal day. Everything was normal. She gave Mirabel a bottle and a pacifier that morning. I mean, nothing was strange. There was something that was a little strange. Mirabel's eyes were moving back and forth. Ka would tell the investigators, it kind of scared me a bit, but she tried not to think anything too deep into it because she believed in God. In a subsequent interview with both Ka Yang and her mom, they both bring up the words spirits and possessions. Before the seizure, Mirabel was moving her eyes back and forth, looking at something. She was crying and spitting out her pacifier. What was she looking at? The spirit and demon together. Through Ka Yang and her husband's statements, the authorities gathered that Ka Yang's new version of events included her seeing a Caucasian demon or spirit outside staring at her and Mirabel through the window. Now, it's reported that Ka Yang told her husband that the spirit was walking around outside the house and wanted their baby. Ka Yang states that she never stated the spirit made her do anything. She does not have a history of talking to spirits or demons or taking direction from them. Then it's further clarified that Ka Yang was not talking about the spirits that the investigators believe she was referring to. In Hmong culture, many people believe epilepsy is when a spirit invades the body. Yang's husband clarifies to the investigators that he himself is not one of those people. He thinks it's all... He's also Hmong. He implies that Yang is the same. Yang and her husband are both members of the LDS church. So he's like, we don't believe in shamanism. We don't believe in the spirit taking over your body during a seizure. But the investigators, they take it very seriously because in one interview, Yang's brother does state that the authorities straight up asked him, hey, do you guys do human sacrifices? Which is... kind of a crazy question. No, they don't. It's a crazy question to ask. Eventually, Yang will state that she does not believe in her epilepsy being controlled by spirits. Her first seizure was at her uncle's house, and it was very clearly traumatic. Everyone hoped it would be a one-time incident, but she was diagnosed with epilepsy. Since then, she had suffered about 100 seizures for the next 15 years. Now, each patient with epilepsy can have more than one type of seizure. Yang and her family state that she had a few different types of seizures. In almost all of them, she has no recollection, no memory of what happened during her seizure. She could be standing, sitting, doesn't matter. The first thing she'll notice is her hands start to curl up, her body or certain parts of her body start to shake very slowly. Then, she only knows what people tell her, because around this point, she blacks out. Her eyes will roll to the back of her head. She makes these intense, painful groaning and moaning noises. And within a few minutes, she'll finally come to and realize she's on the floor or she's passed out on the couch. The only indications that she has that she suffered a seizure are she had bitten down on her tongue so hard she can now taste, or her tongue is so swollen she can barely talk, or other times she loses control over her bladder and she'll wake up in a giant wet puddle. Her head will also start throbbing like it's going to explode, and her body feels so sore. The way she describes it, it feels like she climbed up a massive tree in the backyard and then just let go. Just fell from the top of the tree. She's out for typically 2 minutes. But most of the people who have witnessed Yang's seizures say, yeah, there's no way that she could really do much during them. She definitely can't work on her computer or drive right after. It's just not possible. They say it takes Ka about 3 to 4 hours just to recover to the point where she, quote, regains her senses. Which this part is interesting because nobody saw Ka in that state that day. Va was the one that called the police, but he did notice something that just wasn't clicking. His sister-in-law Ka was acting a bit different compared to all the other times he's ever seen her have a seizure. She was even able to listen to 911 operators' instructions on how to give CPR. She performed mouth-to-mouth while Va did the chest compressions. I don't know if Va himself is skeptical because he does go on to state that Yang is a loving mother who would never harm her children on purpose, but that's just what he tells authorities he observed that day. Authorities, however, don't have the same sympathy as Va do. They are very, very skeptical about all of this. The first responders that arrived at the scene minutes after 911 was called, they stated from their very limited observations of Yang, nothing suggested to them that she had suffered a seizure recently. The first responders and the officers, they do admit they breached protocol by not assessing her medical condition at that point.
Wow, okay.
But eventually, it's been reported that Kai even admitted to the authorities that she could not have suffered a seizure during that time because she didn't fall down.
You say she admitted that?
Yes, but there's questions about all of this. She admits it, but keep in mind, there's 2 ways to take this. Some people think, whoa, she just admitted consciously to knowing that she did not have a seizure. She just admitted it. But what the defense argues is she's clearly disoriented when she's responding to some of the questions. She never received medical attention, and she's saying whatever the authorities want her to say. She seemed like she was in a slightly confused state of, I guess what they're arguing is, likely what she responded was, well, yeah, typically I do collapse, so I guess that doesn't make sense either. All of this is confusing, is more so what they're trying to say she was implying. The authorities do admit that near the end of questioning, Ka did appear confused, which might explain what comes next. The next version of events, according to Yang, is that no, she did not have a seizure, but she does have DID.
This is from the defense team?
No, this is from Yang before she, I guess, attorneyed up.
Wow.
She states that she has a, quote, split personality, and maybe an alter did this because she has no recollection of any of these events. This part has been argued both ways by people. One group of people who believe she's doing everything she can just to find anything that sticks. Maybe this way she can try and get an insanity plea. Another group of people who believe this girl is so desperate to make sense of what's going on and what happened that she's offering up any solution and explanation, because wouldn't it be in her best interest to not say all of this? Regardless of which side you're on so far, it is up to the jury to decide what's going to happen to Ka Yang. The defense's argument goes as follows. That day, Ka Yang was holding Mirabel at her desk while working. All of a sudden, her head starts throbbing, the ache in her body becomes unbearable, her tongue feels swollen, and then nothing. She doesn't remember anything from that point forward. She had a seizure. Ka Yang says, I never thought that with my seizures, I would lose my little girl. So the defense is saying, forget the DID, forget the spirits. What happened is she had a seizure and she microwaved her baby. The defense's main argument is that either she had one of those seizures where she could still be moving around and she could be doing things in an automatic way, or she had a clonic tonic where she did fall to the ground, fall unconscious, but she awoke in a hazy period, and in that hazy period, she microwaved her baby. So they're saying because nobody assessed her medically, we don't know which one, but it seems like either way, it's completely a result of her seizure. That's what they're arguing. But at the same time, the expert that testified on behalf of the defense, the doctor, he does admit it is an alarming number of buttons that needed to be pressed on the microwave to make it run for 5 minutes. He said it would indeed be remarkably rare for a mother to put her baby in the oven and turn it on. It would be like two comets colliding. So her having a seizure, then her placing the baby in the microwave.
Wow.
He states, quote, just absolutely incredible in terms of the odds of it happening. But the defense attorney points out, well, listen to the testimonies of people who have witnessed Ka Yang having these seizures. They all state that afterwards, they need to help her lay down or make her sit down, indicating that Ka would try to get up as an automatic response. It seems like she tries to move around quickly after seizures. If nobody is there to persuade her not to, what would she do? They also point out the fact that Ka Yang has never tried to hurt anyone during the time that she's had close to 100 seizures, but a lot of netizens wonder if setting the microwave for 5 minutes is a very normal thing for Ka to do repeatedly. A family spokesperson argued, she didn't know what she was doing. She's a gentle, nice woman. She would never intentionally harm her child. Her mind was out of reality. Her lawyer argues she suffers from epilepsy. She had an epileptic seizure. It was not deliberate conduct. The defense team argues that it appears to be intentional conduct because the nature of the seizures, but quote, but the truth is her actions are sort of automatic. It's robotic. It's not the product of careful and rational thought. Because also, if she wanted to kill her kid, would she do it when there's so much going on, when she knows that the brother-in-law is about to walk in through the front door in a few seconds, her mom is out in the backyard? Is this really the timing? And to show you how serious her seizures are, the defense brings up that just a week before Mirabel's death, Ka Yang woke up in the hospital, very confused, very disoriented, with no recollection of what just happened. She didn't know what was going on. She didn't know why she was in the hospital. In fact, most of the times after seizures, she really is confused why there's paramedics. They state that she had been driving and suffered from a seizure. The only thing she stated she remembered was remembering the feeling of seeing someone right in front of her. Now, I don't believe that there was someone right in front of her, or perhaps they moved out the way, because I couldn't find any additional information on this incident. But it is interesting that she states she saw someone before that seizure as well. The defense argues that the entire time since the authorities showed up to the house, nobody would listen to her. She told them repeatedly she suffered from a seizure. Nobody believed her. Nobody got her medical attention, which is exactly what they did about her pregnancy.
What?
3 months after the death of Mirabel, Ka Yang was arrested, and she was pregnant at the time of her arrest. The defense claims, just like the epilepsy issue, when Ka Yang was arrested, when she was in jail, she repeatedly stated that she's pregnant, but they took over a week to get the pregnancy test done and confirmed that yes, indeed, she is pregnant and requires special attention. The prosecution argues all the opposite points. They rely on the fact that nobody believes that Ka Yang suffered a seizure that day, at least no one on the prosecutor's side. They think that she's using her epilepsy as an excuse. They argue her seizures are so severe that she wouldn't even be able to use a microwave. The point about Ka Yang not liking to drive, that's another indicator. The prosecution feels like that shows she's incapable of doing much when she's suffering from a seizure. In addition to that, one thing that stands out to investigators is Ka Yang shows almost no emotion during the investigation. 11 the day of Mirabel's death. They say it's just odd behavior. The prosecution do hire a neurologist, Dr. David. He has a specialty in epilepsy, and they just want him to testify at first. Now, when he first goes over all the case files, he writes that he does not think that the prosecution should prosecute for murder. He wrote that there is enough probability really, that Ka Yang may have suffered from a seizure. But once he's given a more accurate, quote, precise timeline, he changes his mind. He said, yeah, no, this does not make sense because there's only an 11-minute time span that all of this takes place. At 1:58 p.m., Ka Yang was using her computer for work, something that she would not be able to do during her seizure, even in the hazy phase after the seizure. So that means she had her seizure right after because her brother-in-law leaves around that time.
Yeah.
Then she wakes up from the seizure, places her baby in the microwave, performs a semi-complex action of pushing at least 3 buttons to start the microwave, then took the baby out, brought the baby to her mother while appearing to be panicked yet mostly coherent by 2:10 p.m. So he's saying even if she did this in her hazy period, the hazy period should last longer than this.
Right. I see.
He said it does not make sense. He states that after each seizure, there is a postictal hazy period, which lasts anywhere between 10 to 20, maybe even 30 minutes, where it's just very uncommon for people to perform complex actions, such as use a microwave, operate a computer. But even if they do that, it would be very difficult for her to snap out of it and now answer these questions very coherently. Tell her brother-in-law what happened, call the police, perform mouth to mouth.
Right.
But then again, how many instances are there where mothers have to snap out of it because the adrenaline of their kid potentially dying? So it's just kind of a bit of a confusing situation. Now, after reviewing the precise timeline where this all takes place within 11 minutes, Dr. David decides to testify for the prosecution. Another reason that Dr. David probably testified is the exact microwave that was used in their house. It's suggested by the microwave expert, judging from Mirabel's burns, that she was in there for 5 minutes. They're trying to figure out how many keystrokes, how many buttons does it get to set it for 5 minutes to have the microwave run for that long.
Yes.
They try all sorts of methods, and the most obvious is pressing 500 and then start. So 4 buttons.
They are saying every single press is a lot for someone who's in that stage. Right?
Yeah, it's very complex. Now, the prosecution believes that if it's not a seizure, which they don't believe her to be in a seizure at that point, then it must be postpartum depression and perhaps psychosis. Their belief is that Ka was frustrated that day with Mirabel. She's postpartum, she's on the verge of snapping, she's potentially having a bit of psychosis, she's seeing spirits and demons outside the window, a Caucasian demon, and that particular day, they argue Mirabel was more fussy than normal, and maybe that triggered something. She's overstressed, overstimulated, constantly running after her kids, and they believe in this moment she killed her child. But August 2011, a few months after Mirabel's death, Ka does admit to a doctor, quote, there were voices talking in her head, and she would try to cope with them by pushing them out and not paying attention to them. She said sometimes it was successful, other times it felt like someone kept coming up behind her. She stated to her doctor that she told her husband and priest about this, and they said that she was only in her head about it and just not to pay it attention. She said after Mirabel's birth, she wasn't eating much. She had an increase in, quote, auditory hallucinations, is how the doctor describes it, as well as an increase in seizures, but she didn't align with postpartum depression. She doesn't really describe in depth what the auditory hallucinations were saying, but on one occasion, she does state that she heard a voice telling her, hey, I'm back, but that's it.
What?
No other, quote, interactions, if you will. Another thing that the investigators point out is the fact that Ka Yang stated in the initial interview, the day of the incident, she went out back to the back of the house to look for her mom because she was panicked. They thought it was strange that she didn't look for Va, who would likely already be in the house and be very alert and ready to assist, unless she was conscious enough to see him leave. But Ka Yang's mom would argue that she never actually came to the back. She went into the kitchen and Ka Yang's mom was the one that opened the back door to get inside. They argue actually the fact that Ka Yang states that she went out back looking for her mom is another show that she has no idea what she's saying. She's not in her right mind. In the end, the prosecution argued that the jury should find Ka Yang guilty as she cooked her baby on high heat. There are a few theories with this case because this case is weird. There doesn't seem to be malicious intent. First theory being that Ka Yang is telling the truth and she did suffer a seizure and likely does not remember what happened afterwards. That's why her story keeps changing. One netizen states, I've been told I made scrambled eggs during my seizure. Yeah, and I also messed up my knee. Another netizen states, my mom found me trying to climb into our cutlery drawer, and the next day we found all the cutlery behind our sofa, so I must have put the cutlery there to make room for myself in the drawer.
Wow, so a lot can happen.
Yes, and it doesn't seem coherent either. A lot of people with epilepsy seem to agree that you can do very strange things during a seizure. Then there's the more unhinged theory, where they've taken out the seizures and replaced it with, I guess, the spirits and demons. So Dr. Resnick, the psychiatrist that's testifying for the defense, he stated it doesn't make sense for Ka Yang to kill her child. There's only a few reasons why a mother would kill her child. According to his research, he believes each reason can be somewhat categorized into 5. 1, an unwanted child. 2, revenge against their spouse. 3, overzealous discipline. 4, psychosis and/or a similar mental affliction. And 5, altruism. They theorize that perhaps the mentioning of Mirabelle's eyes moving back and forth maybe Ka, in that very strange mental state, believed that Mirabelle was seeing a spirit. And if that's the case, all of the other verbiage that she might have been surrounded by, with seizures being connected to spirits, she thought her daughter was going to have seizures later in life. Because seizures are also genetic. And having lived with the past 15 years with seizures and living the complexities of that, this netizen theorizes it could have been possible that Ka Yang wanted to save her daughter from that fate. Ka Yang did mention to authorities that she had thoughts of self-exiting when she was younger because of her seizures, but she knows she cannot even entertain those thoughts because her children need her. But it is a wild theory. Then lastly, you have the theory that either Ka Yang was suffering from postpartum, a seizure, a combination of everything, and she killed her baby, and she should be found guilty of murder. Which I don't know enough about this case or epilepsy or even really postpartum psychosis to form an adequate opinion, but I don't know if this theory makes as much sense when you really keep looking into it. Mainly because she could have reached out to her mom that was outside. So unless it's confirmed she's having hallucinations and was suffering from a state of psychosis, I just can't wrap my head around her just being frustrated and overwhelmed and wanting her baby to stop crying. There's no indication that Mirabelle was being extra fussy that morning. And on top of that, postpartum psychosis is a pretty strong thing. People will notice it. But in the end, Ka Yang was found guilty of first-degree murder and assault on a child resulting in death. She was sentenced to 25 years to life. While she's in prison, Ka Yang's sister died from a seizure while Ka Yang was in prison. So it does seem like, yeah. The family argued it's very clear that both the daughters have very serious conditions. The defense has appealed the verdict, and their main appeal is based on the fact that Mirabelle's pediatrician, so the baby's doctor, testified during the trial for the prosecution. I'm not coming for the doctor. I don't think it's the doctor's fault. I think if anyone told me to testify or be on the stand in regards to a baby dying, I would do it. But the prosecutors were not technically legally right in the fact that they asked her to testify. So it's the prosecution's fault. The main reason being, the same doctor that's on the stand testifying for the prosecution, talking about all the symptoms of postpartum depression psychosis, is the same doctor that screened Ka Yang for postpartum depression and determined that she was negative. I do think Ka Yang's case is a situation where I don't know if her attorney was the best. Ultimately, the judgment has been reversed. That does not mean that Ka Yang is free. She's currently still in prison to see if the prosecutors want to try her again, if she's going to have a retrial, or if they're just going to drop the charges.